Are you looking for the best graphics card? In this video we will look at some of the 5 best graphics card on the market. Before we get started with our video, we have included links in the description. So make sure you check those out to see which one is in your budget range. Starting at number 1. AMD RX 7900 XTX review. The lineup of current-gen GPUs all have one thing in common: they're expensive. That makes choosing the best GPU tough, but AMD has a compelling offer this time around. The RX 7900 XTX offers flagship performance at an excellent value amid the inflated landscape of GPU prices right now. For raw performance, the RX 7900 XTX is capable of running the most demanding PC above 60 frames per second (FPS), and in the case of titles like Red Dead Redemption 2 and Horizon Zero Dawn, it can even hit around 100 frames per second. It can go toe-to-toe with the RTX 4080 Super, though it has lost some rankings since Nvidia dropped the price of its 4K GPU. In addition, it's smaller, and it calls for standard 8-pin power rather than the 12-pin connector featured on Nvidia's most recent GPUs. That doesn't mean the RX 7900 XTX is without faults. It gets loud and it runs hot, and compared to Nvidia, it lacks prowess in ray tracing games. Even with those caveats, the RX 7900 XTX is an excellent graphics card that can power high-end gaming and demanding titles like Cyberpunk 2077. Number 2. AMD Radeon RX 7900 GRE. Why should you buy this? It's the best AMD graphics card we've seen this generation. Who's it for? Gamers who want great 1440p and 4K performance and don't care much about ray tracing. What we thought of the AMD Radeon RX 7900 GRE? The AMD RX 7900 GRE seems like a mistake. The card was originally released in China several months ago, and it never seemed like it would come to the US. Now, it's finally here, and with a bargain bin price of $550. It's a direct response to Nvidia's competition at around this price, delivering slightly better performance than the RTX 4070 Super overall for a lower price. In our review, we call it the best AMD GPU we've seen this generation. It manages to match the RTX 4070 Super at a lower price, while outclassing the RTX 4070 by around 15% at the same price. For frame chasers, the RX 7900 GRE is the best GPU at this price. The main reason the RX 7900 GRE loses out from a top slot is the RTX 4070 Super. For a slight premium, you have access to better ray tracing performance and DLSS. Number 3. AMD Radeon RX 7600. Solid 1080p gaming performance. Aggressive pricing. Only a single 8-pin power connector. Compact design. Memory interface limits higher resolutions. Ray tracing performance is lack-kin. Why should you buy this? It's a solid 1080p graphics card at a reasonable price. 1080p gamers on a tight budget. What we thought of the AMD Radeon RX 7600? The RX 7600 isn't a showstopper graphics card, but it's the closest we've seen to a true budget offering this generation. Arriving at $270, the GPU offers above 60 frames per second in demanding titles like Cyberpunk 2077 at 1080p. That's what you want out of a graphics card under $300. The RX 7600 manages to meet, and often exceed, the 60 frames per second mark for demanding titles at 1080p. It also supports AMD's Fidelity FX Super Resolution (FSR), so it can scale up to higher frame rates in titles like Starfield and Alan Wake 2. The card only really loses out when it comes to ray tracing. AMD cards aren't great when it comes to ray tracing, and this budget-focused offering doesn't change that story. It can handle some lighter ray tracing in games like Resident Evil 4, but you'll need to turn off the feature in anything more demanding. Number 4. AMD Radeon RX 7900 XT. It's a powerful 4K GPU, and it supports DisplayPort 2.1 for high-end VR headsets. Who's it for? VR enthusiasts who want to drive high-end headsets. What we thought of the AMD Radeon RX 7900 XT? The AMD RX 7900 XT wasn't a great GPU when it released, but it's become much better since. It's seen a wave of price drops, bringing the $900 list price down to around $700. It's a great buy at that price, especially if you're in the market for high-end VR gaming. The big reason the RX 7900 XT stands out so much is its DisplayPort 2.1 support. High-end VR headsets often come with insane resolutions and refresh rates, which require DisplayPort 2.1. The RX 7900 XT is able to work with these headsets due to its connection. It's no slouch of a GPU, either. Although the RX 7900 XTX is more powerful for 4K, the RX 7900 XT has enough grunt to play most demanding games at 4K and 60 frames per second. You may have to turn down settings in a few titles, but those situations should be few and far between. Number 5. Intel RX 750. It's a great graphics card for the price, minus a few bugs. Gamers looking for a great deal that don't mind dealing with a few bugs. What we thought of the Intel RX 750? Intel's RX 750 has gotten much better since launch, now sporting solid DirectX 9 support and much faster drivers. It has always been competitive with Nvidia's RTX 3060 while costing around $100 less, but it looks even more enticing now that Intel has slashed the A750's price to $250. AMD usually is the budget alternative to Nvidia, and although that's still true, Nvidia has been the way to go if you want to turn on ray tracing. The RX 750 has competitive ray tracing, unlike its AMD counterparts, meaning it can truly go toe-to-toe with the RTX 3060. On top of that, the card also supports Intel's CSS upscaling feature, which uses AI to upscale your games and improve performance. It's not available in a ton of games, but Intel should add support in more titles over the coming months.